The war between the Rethani Empire and the Vorix Collective had burned across the galaxy for 18 long years. Billions had died on both sides. Entire planets lay in ruins. Trade routes that once connected 1,000 worlds now served as graveyards for broken ships and lost souls. On a neutral station called Vaner Prime, the Galactic Assembly gathered for an emergency meeting. Representatives from 42 species filled the Great Hall, their voices rising and falling like waves against a rocky shore. At the center of the chaos stood two delegations that refused to look at each other. The Rethani, tall and covered in dark scales, stood on the left. The Vorix, insect-like beings with 4 arms and compound eyes, stood on the right. Ambassador Nathan Cole watched them from the human section of the hall. He was a man of 53 years, with gray hair and a face marked by old scars from his time as a soldier. Those days were behind him now. He served Earth with words instead of weapons, though he sometimes wondered which was more dangerous. "The humans must choose," the Rethani delegate hissed. His name was High Commander Varth, and he commanded respect through fear alone. "You sit in your corner of the galaxy and pretend this war does not concern you. But it does. It concerns everyone." The Vorix delegate clicked her mandibles in agreement. "For once, I agree with our enemy. Humanity has resources, ships, soldiers. You will give them to one side or the other. This is not a request." Cole felt every eye in the chamber turn toward him. Some looked curious. Others looked hungry. A few looked afraid, though he could not understand why. Humanity was new to the galactic stage. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. Compared to empires that had ruled the stars for thousands of years, humans were children. He stood slowly and walked to the center platform. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. "The United Human Federation has heard your demands," Cole said. His voice was calm and steady. "We have discussed them at length, and we have reached a decision." Vorth leaned forward. "Speak then, human. Earth will not participate in your war." The hall erupted. Voices shouted in a dozen languages. The Rethani delegate slammed his fist against his podium. The Vorix clicked and buzzed with what might have been laughter or anger. "Cowards," Vorth spat. "You hide behind your borders while the galaxy burns. Do you think the fire will not reach you eventually?" Cole did not flinch. "We are not cowards. We simply refuse to kill for causes that are not our own. Your war began over territory disputes that happened before my grandfather was born. We will not add human blood to your ancient grudge." "Then you are fools," the Vorix delegate said. "Weak and foolish children who do not understand how the universe works." "Perhaps," Cole replied, "but we will remain neutral. This is our final answer." He turned and walked back to his seat. The other delegates whispered among themselves. Most of them dismissed humanity entirely after that moment. The humans were too young, too soft, too afraid to matter in the great game of galactic power. That was their first mistake. 3 weeks later, High Commander Vorth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Wrath of Rethani. Around him, 40 warships held formation in the darkness between stars. Their destination was a small human colony called New Oregon, home to 2.3 million settlers who had no idea what was coming. "Are you certain about this plan?" his second officer asked. "Attacking a neutral world could unite the other species against us." Vorth made a sound like grinding stones. It was the Rethani version of a laugh. "The humans are weak. They said so themselves when they refused to fight. When we destroy their colony, they will have 2 choices. They can join us out of fear, or they can do nothing and prove they are as pathetic as we believe. Either outcome serves our purpose, and if they fight back, they will not. They do not have the stomach for war. I have studied their history. They talk about peace and cooperation. They believe in diplomacy and compromise. These are not the traits of warriors. The second officer nodded, though doubt still lingered in his eyes. As you command, High Commander. Vorath turned to the navigation officer. Set course for New Oregon. Maximum speed. Far away, on the human ship SS Defiance. Lieutenant Commander Laura Bennett sat in the intelligence center and stared at her screens. She was 31 years old, with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped working. Her job was to watch for threats, to find patterns in the chaos of galactic communications. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. Rithani fleet movements had changed over the past week. Ships were gathering at unusual coordinates. Communication traffic had increased by 300%, but all of it was encrypted with codes she had never seen before. She pulled up a star map and traced the projected course of the Rithani fleet. Her blood ran cold when she saw where the line ended. No, she whispered. They would not dare. But she knew they would. She had read the same reports as everyone else. The Rithani believed humans were cowards. They thought Earth would do nothing if pushed. Bennett grabbed her communicator and called Admiral Daniel Hayes directly. Protocol said she should go through proper channels. Protocol could wait. Admiral, this is Lieutenant Commander Bennett. I need to speak with you immediately. It is about New Oregon. Across the void of space, 40 Rithani warships entered hyperspace. Their weapons were armed. Their crews were ready. They expected no resistance. They had no idea what they were about to start. The sky above New Oregon turned red at dawn. It was not the red of sunrise. It was the red of fire falling from heaven. Governor Patricia Morgan stood at the window of her office in the capital city of Riverside. She was a woman of 45 years, with brown hair tied back and hands still rough from her days as an engineer. She had built bridges and power plants before she built a government. Now she watched as everything she had worked for began to burn. How many ships? She asked. Her aide checked his screen with shaking hands. 40 warships in orbit, Governor. They started bombing the industrial district 10 minutes ago. Our defense stations are gone. All of them. Morgan closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, the fear was still there, but it was buried deep. Get me a channel to Earth, quantum link, now. The Rithani are jamming most frequencies. Then find one they are not jamming. I do not care if you have to shout into space with a megaphone. Earth needs to see this. On the streets below, people ran in every direction. Families carried children. Old men helped old women. The screams mixed with the thunder of explosions until it became one endless sound of suffering. Sergeant Kevin Brooks moved through the chaos with 12 Marines at his back. He was 34 years old, a man built like a wall and just as hard to move. His rifle was up and his eyes never stopped scanning. Sergeant, where are we going? One of his soldiers asked. The civilian shelter on 5th Street. There are 300 people trapped there. The building next to it collapsed and blocked the exit. But the Rithani ground troops are landing in the park. That is only 2 blocks from 5th Street. Brooks kept walking. Then we better move fast. The Rithani came down from the sky in dropships that looked like black metal beetles. They poured into the streets with weapons that fired bolts of superheated plasma. They expected the humans to run. They expected surrender within hours. What they got was different. A Rithani squad turned a corner and found Kevin Brooks waiting for them. He did not give them time to react. His rifle barked 3 times and 3 Rithani fell. The rest scattered for cover. But Brooks was already moving, circling behind them with his Marines. The fight lasted 90 seconds. When ended, 8 Rithani lay dead in the street, and Brooks had not lost a single soldier. Sergeant, one of his Marines said, staring at the bodies. I thought they were supposed to be great warriors. They are, Brooks replied. But they have never fought humans before. They will learn. Move out. In the medical center on the east side of Riverside, Dr. Lisa Turner worked without rest. She was 29 years old, with steady hands and a heart that broke every time she could not save someone. Today her heart was breaking a lot. The wounded came in waves. Burns from plasma fire. Broken bones from collapsed buildings. Children crying for parents who would never answer. "Doctor, we are running out of burn gel," a nurse told her. "Then use what we have on the worst cases. The others will have to wait. Some of them will not survive waiting." Turner looked at the nurse with eyes that had seen too much in too few hours. "I know. Do it anyway." Above the planet, the Rithani fleet continued its bombardment. High Commander Vorath watched the destruction from his bridge with satisfaction. The humans were dying by the thousands. Their pitiful defense force had been swept aside like insects. Soon the colony would fall, and Earth would learn to fear the Rithani Empire. Then something strange happened. "High Commander," his sensor officer said, "we are detecting a transmission leaving the planet. Quantum frequency. It is reaching Earth in real time. Block it." "We cannot. The signal is coming from multiple sources. The humans are broadcasting from every communication device on the planet." Vorath felt the first cold touch of uncertainty. "What are they broadcasting?" The officer put the transmission on the main screen. Vorath saw burning cities. He saw children screaming. He saw a woman with brown hair standing in front of a camera, her voice steady even as explosions lit the sky behind her. "This is Governor Patricia Morgan of New Oregon. We are under attack by the Rithani Empire. They came without warning and without cause. Thousands of our people are already dead. I do not know how much longer we can hold. But I want Earth to see this. I want every human in the galaxy to see what they are doing to us." The transmission cut to footage from the streets. A Marine carrying a wounded child. An old man trying to pull his wife from the rubble. A doctor working on a patient while the ceiling crumbled around her. On Earth, 17 billion people watched. The United Human Federation called an emergency session of the War Council within the hour. Fleet Admiral Gregory Shaw stood before the assembled leaders with a face like carved stone. He was 61 years old, and he had spent 40 of those years preparing for a war he hoped would never come. "The Rithani attacked New Oregon 6 hours ago," he said. "Current estimates suggest over 40,000 civilian casualties. The number is rising. What are our options?" The Federation president asked. "Two options, Madam President. We can negotiate for the return of our people and accept that the Rithani will face no consequences. Or we can respond with everything we have." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what the second option meant. War with one of the oldest empires in the galaxy. A war that could cost millions of human lives. The president looked at the faces around her. She saw anger. She saw grief. She saw determination. "Call the vote," she said. The vote was unanimous. 12 hours later, Admiral Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiance and watched 400 warships form up around him. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled. Every ship was armed. Every crew was ready. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Bennett said, "the fleet is in position. We are ready to jump on your command." Hayes looked at the stars on his view screen. Somewhere out there, his people were dying. Somewhere out there, an enemy believed that humans would do nothing. "Send a message to all ships," he said. "Tell them we are going to New Oregon. Tell them we are going to bring our people home. And tell them that the Rithani are about to learn why you never make humanity angry." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth behind in a flash of light. The war had begun. High Commander Vorath received the alert in the middle of his victory celebration. His officers had gathered on the bridge to toast the coming fall of New Oregon. The humans on the surface were nearly broken. Another day, perhaps two, and the colony would be his. Then his censor officer spoke the words that changed everything. "High Commander, we are detecting hyperspace signatures. Many of them. They are emerging on the far side of the planet." Vorath set down his drink. "How many ships?" The officer stared at his screen. His scales turned pale. 400, High Commander. Maybe more. The sensors cannot get an accurate count. That is impossible. The humans do not have 400 warships. No one has 400 warships in a single fleet. But the evidence appeared on the main view screen, and Vorath felt his certainty crumble. Human ships poured out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They moved as one body, each vessel holding its position with precision that should have been impossible. The Rithani fleet used scattered formations because coordinating large numbers of ships was too difficult. The humans did not seem to have this problem. "All ships, battle positions," Vorath commanded. "Target the lead vessels and fire at will." His fleet of 37 remaining warships opened fire. Plasma bolts and missiles streaked across the void toward the human formation. Vorath expected to see explosions. He expected to see human ships breaking apart. What he saw instead made his blood run cold. The human ships did not scatter. They did not try to dodge. Instead, they adjusted their formation slightly, and the ships on the outer edge took the hits meant for those in the center. Their shields flared and held. Then they returned fire. Human weapons were different from Rithani weapons. They used solid projectiles, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. They used missiles that thought for themselves and adjusted course to find weak points. They used energy beams that cut through shields like hot knives through soft meat. The first Rithani ship exploded within 30 seconds of the battle starting. The second followed 10 seconds later. By the time 1 minute had passed, 5 Rithani warships were nothing but expanding clouds of debris. "Impossible," Vorath whispered. "This is impossible." Admiral Hayes watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the ESS Defiance. His face showed no joy, no satisfaction. Only grim determination. "Casualty report," he said. 3 ships have taken heavy damage," Lieutenant Commander Bennett replied. "No losses yet. The Rithani formation is breaking apart. They are trying to retreat. Do not let them. I want every ship that attacked New Oregon either destroyed or captured. Not one of them escapes." The human fleet surged forward. They fought in ways the galaxy had never seen. When a human ship took damage, 2 others would move to cover it while it fell back for repairs. When a Rithani ship tried to flee, human vessels would cut off its escape route with mathematical precision. The Rithani called it madness. They did not understand how any species could be so coordinated, so relentless. They did not understand that humans had been fighting wars among themselves for thousands of years. They had practiced every tactic, tested every strategy, bled for every lesson. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 53 Rithani ships had been destroyed. 7 managed to escape into hyperspace, their commanders too shocked to do anything but run. High Commander Vorath was not among the survivors. On the surface of New Oregon, Sergeant Kevin Brooks heard the news through his communicator. He had been fighting for 3 days straight. His armor was scorched. His rifle was nearly out of ammunition. But when he heard that the fleet had arrived, he allowed himself to smile. "All units, this is Sergeant Brooks. The cavalry is here. Hold your positions. Help is coming." Drop pods fell from the sky like metal rain. Human Marines poured onto the surface by the thousands. They hit the Rithani ground forces like a hammer. Hitting glass. Brooks linked up with a company of fresh soldiers and led them toward the last Rithani stronghold in Riverside. The enemy had fortified a warehouse district and refused to surrender. They still believed they could win. They were wrong. The assault took 2 hours. When it was over, 300 Rithani soldiers lay dead or captured. The city of Riverside was free. Governor Patricia Morgan walked through the ruins of her capital with tears streaming down her face. The cost had been terrible. Over 60,000 people had died in the attack. But her colony still stood. Her people still lived. Admiral Hayes landed on the planet that evening. He met with Governor Morgan in what remained of her office, a room with no ceiling and walls blackened by fire. "Admiral, I do not have words to thank you," Morgan said. Hayes shook his head. "Save your thanks. This is not over. The Rithani will not accept this defeat. They will come back with more ships, more soldiers. Unless we make sure they cannot." "What do you mean?" "I mean we are going to end this war. Not just here. Everywhere. The Rithani need to learn that attacking humanity has consequences. I intend to teach them." From the ESS Defiance, Hayes sent a message to the Rithani Empire on every frequency. His words were broadcast to every ship, every station, every planet under Rithani control. "This is Admiral Daniel Hayes of the United Human Federation. Your fleet at New Oregon has been destroyed. Your soldiers have been defeated. You have 48 hours to surrender unconditionally and withdraw from all occupied territories. If you do not, we will come for you. This is not a threat. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." The Rithani Emperor received a message in his throne room on the homeworld. He was ancient by Rithani standards. His scales faded to gray, his eyes clouded with age. But his pride was still strong. Too strong. "Ignore it," he commanded. "The humans are bluffing. They do not have the strength to attack our core worlds." Far across the galaxy, the Vorix Collective watched the battle footage with growing alarm. They had planned to let the Rithani and humans destroy each other, then sweep in to claim the remains. Now they were not so sure. "The humans are dangerous," the Vorix Queen said to her council. "More dangerous than we believed. We must reconsider our strategy. What do you suggest, Majesty?" The Queen's compound eyes glittered in the dim light. "We wait. We watch. And when the moment is right, we strike. But not yet. Not until we understand what we are dealing with." Back on New Oregon, Admiral Hayes stood on a hill overlooking the burning city. Lieutenant Commander Bennett stood beside him. "Sir, do you really think the Rithani will surrender?" Hayes watched the smoke rise into the darkening sky. "No, they are too proud. Too stubborn. They will force us to come to them. And will we?" The Admiral turned and walked back toward his shuttle. His voice carried on the evening wind. "We will do whatever it takes to keep our people safe. Whatever it takes." The Rithani Emperor's pride cost his empire dearly. 48 hours passed without surrender. Admiral Hayes kept his word. The human fleet divided into 3 battle groups. The first, under Vice Admiral Sandra Kim, struck the Rithani military installations along the border. The second, under Rear Admiral Marcus Hall, targeted supply lines and shipyards. The third, led by Hayes himself, drove straight toward the Rithani homeworld, like a spear aimed at the heart of an ancient beast. The Rithani responded with everything they had. They pulled ships from every corner of their territory. They drafted soldiers who had never held weapons before. They fought with the desperation of a dying animal. It was not enough. Captain Samuel Grant commanded the ESS, Relentless, a heavy cruiser at the front of Admiral Hayes' formation. He was only 32 years old, young for a captain, but his tactical mind had already earned him a reputation. Now that reputation would become legend. At the Battle of Vorn Station, Grant faced a Rethani fleet twice the size of his own squadron. The enemy commander expected an easy victory. Grant gave him something else entirely. "All ships, execute pattern Delta," Grant ordered. "On my mark." His squadron scattered in what looked like chaos. The Rethani moved to pick off the isolated vessels one by one. That was when the trap closed. Grant had positioned his ships to create crossfire zones. Every direction the Rethani turned, they faced weapons from multiple angles. Their formation collapsed within minutes. Grant lost 2 ships. The Rethani lost 18. Word of the victory spread through both fleets. The humans called Grant a genius. The Rethani called him a demon, but it was not genius that drove the human advance. It was something the Rethani could not understand. It was the knowledge that 60,000 innocent people had died on New Oregon. It was the memory of children screaming as fire fell from the sky. It was rage, cold and patient, wrapped in discipline. The Rethani noticed something strange about human soldiers. They did not stop. They did not tire. When a battle ended, they immediately prepared for the next one. When they were wounded, they returned to duty as soon as they could stand. They fought as if death meant nothing to them. A captured Rethani officer was brought before Admiral Hayes after one engagement. The alien looked at the human with confusion in his yellow eyes. "Why do you fight like this?" The officer asked. "We have seen many species at war. They fight for territory. They fight for resources. They fight for glory. But your soldiers fight as if something is burning inside them. What drives you?" Hayes considered the question for a long moment. "You attacked our home. You killed our families. You thought we would be afraid." He leaned forward. "You were wrong." Meanwhile, the Vorax Collective saw their opportunity. The Rethani were weakened. Their fleets were scattered. Their attention was focused entirely on the humans. The Vorax Queen gave the order to launch a massive offensive against Rethani territory. 100 Vorax warships crossed the border and struck 3 Rethani colony worlds in a single day. The Rethani had no forces to spare for defense. Their colonies burned just as New Oregon had burned. Lieutenant Commander Bennett intercepted the communications within hours. She ran to the Admiral's quarters with the data in her hands. "Sir, the Vorax are attacking. They are taking advantage of the war to seize Rethani territory." Hayes looked at the reports. His jaw tightened. "They think we will be happy to let our enemies destroy each other. Will we not? The Rethani started this. If the Vorax finish them, it saves us the trouble." The Admiral stood and walked to the viewport. Stars stretched out before him, cold and distant. How many civilians live on those Rethani colonies? Bennett checked her data. "Approximately 12 million, sir. 12 million people who had nothing to do with the attack on New Oregon. 12 million people who will die if we let this continue. Sir, they are Rethani. They are our enemies." Hayes turned to face her. His eyes were hard but not cruel. "They are people. Soldiers follow orders. Civilians just try to survive. I did not come out here to become the thing I am fighting against." He called his command staff together and made a decision that shocked them all. Half of the fleet would continue toward the Rethani homeworld. The other half would intercept the Vorax advance. "Admiral, this is madness," one of his officers protested. "We are in the middle of a war. We cannot fight 2 enemies at once. We can, and we will. Send a message to the Vorax fleet. Tell them to stop their attack or face the consequences." The message reached the Vorax command ship within the hour. Admiral Hayes appeared on their screens, his face calm but his voice carrying the weight of everything he had done. "This is Admiral Daniel Hayes of the United Human Federation. You will halt your advance immediately. You will withdraw to your own territory. The war between the Rethani and the Vorax ends today, along with the war between the Rethani and humanity. If you do not comply, we will treat you as we have treated the Rithani." The Vorax commander laughed. "You are already fighting one war, human. You cannot fight another. Your threats are empty. I destroyed 40 Rithani warships at New Oregon. I have broken their fleets at 12 engagements since then. Do you really want to test whether my threats are empty?" The transmission ended. The Vorax commander turned to his officers with uncertainty on his face. They had expected the humans to be grateful for their help against a common enemy. They had not expected this. "What do we do?" one officer asked. Before the commander could answer, his sensor officer spoke. "Sir, human ships are entering the system. 50 vessels coming in fast." The commander stared at the display. 50 human warships had appeared out of nowhere. They must have been waiting, hidden in a nearby system, ready to strike. The humans had planned for this. They had known the Vorax would try something. They had been ready. "Sir, they are hailing us again." Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen once more. His expression had not changed. "You have 10 minutes to make your decision. Choose wisely." The Vorax commander looked at his fleet. 100 ships against 50. The odds favored him. But the odds had favored the Rithani at New Oregon, and look what had happened to them. "All ships, hold position," he ordered. "Do not fire unless fired upon." He opened a channel to the Vorax homeworld. "Majesty, we have a problem." Far away, the Rithani Emperor received word that the human fleet was entering his home system. 200 human warships filled his sky. There was nowhere left to run. His advisors begged him to surrender. His generals told him the war was lost. His pride told him to fight to the last soldier. In the end, it was not pride that made his decision. It was the sight of human ships positioning themselves above his cities, their weapons armed and ready. If he fought, they would destroy everything. His people would die by the billions. His civilization would end. The emperor closed his eyes and spoke the words that ended an empire's war. "Contact the human admiral. Tell him we accept his terms." The Vorax queen made her choice 3 hours after the Rithani surrender. She looked at the reports from her fleet commanders. She studied the footage of human ships cutting through Rithani defenses like they were made of paper. She calculated the cost of fighting a species that refused to quit. "Order our forces to withdraw," she said to her council. "Accept a human ceasefire." "Majesty, we have 100 ships in position. We could still take the Rithani colonies. And then what? Fight the humans next?" They just defeated an empire in 26 days. They did it while threatening to fight us at the same time. I will not sacrifice our people for territory we cannot hold. The order went out. Vorax ships pulled back across the border. The war that had burned for 18 years ended not with a final battle, but with silence. Admiral Daniel Hayes landed on the Rithani homeworld on a gray morning. The sky was heavy with clouds, and the air smelled of smoke from distant fires. He came with no army at his back, just a shuttle and a small honor guard. The Rithani emperor waited for him in the great hall of the imperial palace. The ancient ruler sat on a throne carved from black stone, his scales dull and his eyes tired. Around him stood his remaining generals and advisors, their faces showing the shame of defeat. Hayes walked through the hall with steady steps. He stopped before the throne and looked up at the emperor without bowing. "You have won," the emperor said. His voice was rough and bitter. "What tribute do you demand? What territory will you take? How many of my people will you enslave?" Hayes shook his head. "None." The emperor blinked. "I do not understand. We did not come here for conquest. We did not come here for revenge. We came here to end the war that should never have started." He pulled out a document and placed it on the steps before the throne. "These are our terms. The Rithani Empire will withdraw from all occupied territories. The Vorix Collective will do the same. Both sides will release all prisoners of war. Both sides will pay reparations to the worlds damaged by fighting, including New Oregon. And both sides will agree to a permanent ceasefire. That is all? That is all. The Emperor stared at the document as if it might transform into something dangerous. You could take half our territory. You could cripple us for generations. Why do you show mercy? Hayes looked at him with eyes that held no hatred, only exhaustion. Because mercy is not weakness. Because killing more people will not bring back the ones we lost. Because I want my soldiers to go home to their families, not spend the next 10 years fighting a war without end. He paused. And because I hope that someday we might actually learn to live in peace. The Emperor signed the document. The war was over. On New Oregon, Governor Patricia Morgan received the news while standing in the ruins of Riverside. Reconstruction crews worked around her, clearing rubble and laying the foundations for new buildings. The city would rise again. It would take years, but it would happen. Governor, her aide said, Admiral Hayes is requesting permission to land. Granted. And prepare a reception. That man saved our world. Hayes landed an hour later. Morgan met him on the tarmac, and for a moment they just stood there. Two tired people who had seen too much. Thank you, Morgan said. For everything? Do not thank me yet. The hard work is just beginning. Rebuilding takes longer than destroying. I know. But we will manage. We always do. Sergeant Kevin Brooks received a medal for his actions during the battle. He stood in a ceremony with hundreds of other soldiers, their uniforms pressed and their faces solemn. The Federation president herself pinned the medal to his chest. You are a hero, she told him. Brooks thought about the friends he had lost. He thought about the civilians he could not save. He thought about the Rathani soldiers he had killed, who probably had families of their own. I just did my job, ma'am. After the ceremony, he found a quiet corner and pulled out a photograph from his pocket. It showed a woman and two children, smiling in front of a small house. His wife, his kids. They were waiting for him on Earth. I am coming home, he whispered. I am finally coming home. Dr. Elisa Turner stayed on New Oregon. There were still patients who needed care, still wounds that needed healing. She worked in a temporary medical center built from prefabricated units, treating humans and Rithani prisoners alike. A young Rithani soldier came to her one day. He had been wounded in the fighting. An infection had set into his arm. Without treatment, he would lose the limb. Why do you help me? He asked as she cleaned his wound. I am your enemy. Turner looked at him with gentle eyes. You were my enemy. The war is over now. And even when it was not, you were still a person who needed help. That is all that matters. The soldier did not understand, but he remembered her kindness for the rest of his life. Ambassador Nathan Cole returned to the Galactic Assembly to deliver humanity's final message. The Great Hall was fuller than it had ever been. Every species in the known galaxy had sent representatives. Eager to hear what the humans would say, Cole stood at the center platform, the same place where he had declared humanity's neutrality just weeks before. The delegates who had laughed at him then were not laughing now. You asked us to stay out of your wars, Cole said. We tried. We wanted peace. We wanted to build, not destroy. But you brought war to our doorstep. You killed our people. And you learned something that I hope you never forget. He paused and looked around the hall. Every eye was fixed on him. Humans do not fight for glory. We do not fight for conquest. We fight to protect what we love. And when we fight, we do not stop until the fighting is done. His voice hardened. The Rithani thought we were weak. The Vorix thought they could take advantage of us. Both were wrong. Let this be a lesson to anyone who considers making the same mistake. He stepped back from the platform. "We want peace. We offer friendship to any species willing to accept it. But make no mistake. If you threaten humanity again, you will face everything we have. And you will not survive it." The hall remained silent as Cole walked away. Far across the galaxy, on the Rithani homeworld, a young historian recorded the events in the official archives. She was old enough to remember when the war began. When the Rithani believed they would rule the stars forever, she wrote, "In the year 2387 by the human calendar, a species barely 60 years into spaceflight defeated two of the oldest empires in the galaxy. They ended an 18-year war in less than a month. They showed mercy when they could have shown cruelty, and they changed the balance of power forever." She paused, thinking of the right words to end her entry. Let this record stand as a warning to all who come after. Humans are not the strongest species. They are not the oldest or the wisest. But they are united in ways we do not understand, and they fight with a fury that defies explanation. The galaxy dismissed them as young and foolish. The galaxy was wrong. Admiral Daniel Hayes retired 6 months after the war ended. He bought a small house by the ocean on Earth, far from the noise of cities and the demands of command. He spent his days fishing and watching the waves. Sometimes reporters came to interview him. They wanted to know what he thought about being called the greatest military leader in human history. They wanted to know if he had any regrets. Hayes always gave them the same answer. "I did what I had to do. Nothing more. Nothing less. Now please leave me alone. The war is over, and I would like to enjoy the peace." And so he did. For all the years that remained to him, as the galaxy slowly learned that the young species called humanity was not to be underestimated. Not ever again.